Hello, I'm Civil Rights Attorney Carol Powell-Lexing, and welcome to the Carol Powell-Lexing Show, a show that allows you to connect to pertinent issues affecting your community and this country. Normally, before I get started, I always like to get an affirmation, and we are definitely so in need of one in this dispensation, this uncertain dispensation of time, because, hey, it just seems like our world is under attack. Everything is chaotic, but nevertheless, know that you are resilient and you can handle anything that comes your way because you are fearfully and wonderfully and marvelously made. And guess what? We're fighters. We're going to get through it because we walk by faith and not by sight. And today, guess what? We're going to be talking about this American story that it's just going to blow your mind. It's an incredible story regarding the 6888 Central Postal Battalion that served in the U.S. Army. It was really formed by the U.S. Army back in 1944, just short of 2 years after the Army allowed women to serve in the military. But today we have some very special guests here that's going to help us facilitate our discussion regarding this amazing American story regarding the 6888 Battalion. And today we have with us Miss Carlota Espinosa and Miss Keri, Selig.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
And I am so excited about this movie that you have introduced to, I would say, a new generation of people, but the old generation would be myself too. And I'm excited to talk about it. The 6888 Postal Battalion. Kind of tell us, how did you all come about being interested in this particular story?
Well, I'm a former journalist, and I am a big World War II buff. And I read this magazine. It's truly for history buffs. It's World War II magazine. And I became friendly with the publisher of another project that I was interested before. And he had sent me this article about the 6888 Postal Battalion, and before it had been published, and said, this might be something you might be interested. Have you ever heard of them? And to my surprise, I had never heard of this battalion.
Right.
And I went and did research as well, and there was very little about these women. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I was embarrassed because I felt like I thought I knew a lot about World War II history. And then from then on, he put me in touch with the writer, and we had a phone call, and I said, I think this could be a movie. I had no idea what to do, but I was like, I think this could be a movie.
Wow.
And this is during the pandemic, and that was how we all got started. And then my partner, Kerry Selig, we had another project. And I just called her and I said, have you ever heard of this battalion? And she's like, no, but it sounds amazing. And what we're really great at is researching and getting down to the nitty gritty of like what this story could be.
Right.
And
but right away we said, we need to find this woman now.
Wow.
And it was lockdown COVID, but we said we were going to find her. I mean, we were doing Google Maps searches, trying to figure out where she lives. We were going to sit out in front of her house. We were going to find her no matter what.
You were going to find Miss Lena King?
Miss Lena
Yes.
King.
Wow.
We knew she lived in Vegas. We had an address. And at that point, we just said, let's just get on a plane and knock on her door. We were like, bring flowers. And then we're like, but maybe she's going to,
Did she receive you well?
Well, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
That didn't happen.
Okay.
We found out it was a gated community,
Yeah.
and there was a security guard at the gate.
Okay.
So we knew we weren't going to get in there unless we did something egregious. But we asked the author, Kevin Hemel, who said that he knew about a woman who is part of the Veterans Administration, who is one of her closest friends and a huge advocate for the 6888. And it was the scariest call because we called her up and she is very Army. And we're like, hi, we're from Hollywood and we want to make a movie. And she was like, who are you? Everyone.
Right.
No, it wasn't even that. It was like, what?
Yes.
What?
Yeah. What do you want?
Imagine.
What do you want?
And yeah, and then
is this for real?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
We had to kind of convince her that we were for real and we weren't just another group saying, I mean, we were so passionate. And as Carlota said, we were so organized. We had done so
Right.
much research. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. So, and probably the funniest visual I've ever seen in my life is Carlota in the middle of the pandemic. I think we had 7 masks on. We did COVID tests every
wow.
hour so we wouldn't get anyone sick.
Right.
We had to go on a bus. It was like
I had
trains, planes, and
I had
automobiles.
not traveled. Like, I was like home. You know, I was
Right.
I was
Like
one of
when
those
we were
people. Like, I'm not
quarantined.
doing nothing.
Oh, she was hazmat suit kind of gal.
I literally couldn't believe it. I'm like, we're gonna get COVID. You know, I know it. But the funny thing, just stepping back a little bit, when we were on that call with the woman from the Army to how we can get in touch with Mrs. King, I had said her first name, Lena. And she's like, you mean Mrs. King? And I was like,
Wow.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And from then on,
We never called her Lena
I
ever again.
never called Mrs. King Lena. I mean, as
Right.
you just saw, right? I never do that. So
Yep.
that
We
was
got schooled in Southern
yes,
etiquette.
and I never
Wow.
forgot that. So
We know
and
being
I
from the
appreciated
South.
that.
Yes.
Miss Lena.
We got schooled. We know. We know now.
All
But when
right.
we went there, we went to Las Vegas and she did meet us with incredible open arms, probably the
Wow.
kindest. But the interesting thing about meeting her, she knew what she had been through, but
Right.
she didn't talk about it. I mean, she'd been interviewed in the past, but this was not. They were almost like they put that behind them and didn't really talk
Well,
about
yeah.
it on a day-to-day basis.
I can understand that because they had gone through so much. The segregation, they were in a war, and misogyny, just all kinds of,
I think it's
crippling
also-
things, discriminatory things. That
I
they
think
had gone
also
through.
it's that generation, and
Right.
when we were doing a lot of our research, many of the veterans from World War II, especially, did not talk about it. Very similar to Vietnam, they don't talk about it. And it's like it's also they're very humble, and they also look
Right.
like we did our duty. We were serving our country. We do not need to be known as heroes, and that also extended to the women of the 688. So really, Mrs. King really did feel like that, and they just went on with their lives after they came back.
Wow.
It also wasn't a great homecoming. You know, it wasn't like
Oh,
there were
wow,
ticker
yeah, 'cause
tapes
it's
and
like-
hugs and
Back in the 40s?
no.
Back in, what, 1944
Yeah, it
or
was-
45?
Yes.
How long did they actually serve being in that Postal Battalion at that time? How long was it? Was it 3 years?
Yes, well, I think they were enlisted in 1943, and then they had to go, as you see in the movie, they had to go to for training. So they were in Iowa and also in Georgia, and they had to train. And so, and never in their wildest dreams did they ever think,
They would be deployed.
and let alone going to Europe.
Yeah.
And then, this was the first time to being on a ship, being,
Wow.
being in a
On
completely
an airplane,
different,
on anything.
Yes.
Right. None of these women had ever left their own cities except to go to basic training. But they did 2 tours. So they did this in England, and then they went again, and they did it in France successfully.
Did they go to Scotland also?
They landed in Scotland. That's where the ship lands,
Okay.
and then they went to
France.
England.
England. Okay.
And then right after, when they completed their mission in England, they had another mission in France.
Wow. Yeah, these ladies were sent on a mission to help encourage the men that were fighting in World War II because they hadn't received any mail.
Well, what happened was that the way that this all came about was that they didn't have enough, I'm going to say the word manpower at
Right.
the time, to be able, they had to make a choice. So they needed all the men to be fighting on the front lines.
Right.
So they decided to put all the male in just these massive
Warehouses.
warehouses all over Europe because they couldn't get the mail to these guys. They couldn't find them. It was too complicated. So they said, forget it. So
Right.
none of the families were getting any mail back from their from their sons. And the sons weren't getting any mail from anyone at home, their wives or sisters, their mothers, brothers, nothing. And the saying is low.
No mail,
Right.
low morale.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to say that they had attempted to fix the situation with other battalions, and unsuccessfully. So this was kind of like the last alternative.
Right.
I think also they're like, well, they're women, and they're African American, and they're women of color. So if they fail,
just blame them.
Yeah.
Yes,
You can just blame them.
And they knew, and also in the movie, we touch upon that. They knew that this was more than just
the mission.
figuring out the male. They
Right.
knew this was about their character, about
Right.
women.
Right.
So they knew they had to be extra, like
Always.
better than anybody. Yes.
But always
But
have
it
to
came
go
from
beyond.
Mrs. Roosevelt. So that
Yeah, I was about to ask that
Yes.
because the movie pretty much showed where a family came to her wanting to know what happened to their son and why didn't they hear from him,
Right.
and she instigated
With-
First Lady.
with Mary Bethune. Yes.
Yes.
Which is true story, and who was also a big, civil rights women's activist.
Right.
And they together they'd go to the president and say, there was 3 years. They didn't hear one word. So these guys are in foxholes on the front
Right.
line, watching their friends die, getting blown up, and they don't know why they're not hearing from anyone at home.
Right, they don't know what's going on with their families, and
Yeah.
of course they would be a little discouraged because they're out there fighting, and they just need the encouragement from
Right.
receiving some type
But
of
is it-
mail from their
But
families.
isn't it remarkable that story had never been told? That
Yeah.
something is so important as that about like we see it in movies, when they're bringing the mail and everything, how
Right.
excited that
They
was,
skipped over that part.
and that was completely ignored.
Lord,
Yeah.
Right, right.
But the other thing that's sad to talk about, but not only were they set up to fail, but there was also, which is very hard to talk about, but I think there was over 1 million enlisted African American soldiers in World War II. And they didn't want the white nurses, because it was only white nurses, fraternizing
Right.
with the black soldiers. So what they thought it was they could send these women there not only to hang out with the black soldiers, but also try to get this mail. But they gave them 6 months to do this,
Right.
and they said if it doesn't work, then we said we tried and we're done.
But they finished it.
They did.
In 3 months?
In less than 3 months.
In less
Yeah.
than 3 months.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
Because they were focused and they were organized and they were determined because this was something beyond, like you said earlier, the mail. Just getting the mail to those veterans.
Right. But
To
I also,
those
I
soldiers.
also like to say it's a testament as women.
Yeah, let's
Oh,
say
yeah.
that.
We figure it out, like no matter what.
This is a testament.
This is
Yes.
855 women together.
Yes.
Wow. And this
800.
story has never been
Never.
told.
No.
Because what's so interesting is because, I don't want to mess it up. Is it Corporal Adams?
Yes.
Is that
Charity Adams.
Charity Adams. She was the first black woman to be an officer
She's my
in the
hero.
U.S. Army. Am I right?
Highly, highly
Yes, you're
educated,
correct, yeah.
multiple degrees. She's the daughter of a pastor, but she was brilliant. And if it weren't for this mission, I mean, I would probably say she wouldn't have been where she is, or where she got to. She was a force of nature.
Right, and what made her a force is that she understood the 854 women, or 855 women that she was in command over.
Mm-hmm.
She understood what they were going through as an African American woman. She just understood that she could identify to get them to be so banded together
great point.
and coordinated together that they stayed focused on their mission and they didn't get really distracted about anything less of staying focused of let's do our jobs. We got to do it with a spirit of excellence and let's get out of here.
Yeah. A true leader.
A true leader.
Right.
A true leader. And it's amazing. We've never, ever heard about Corporal Charity Adams.
She is extraordinary. But when we went to meet Mrs. King, Mrs. Lena King, we interviewed her for a long time, and we found out a lot of really great information about her. And this, in the movie, there really was this boy.
Okay.
She went to the only integrated school in
Germantown.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
she was, so her best friend was this white Jewish kid. And they were, and her mom worked for his family, and they knew each other. They were best friends. And he
Right.
really did go and enlist in World War II. and he was a fighter pilot, and he died very soon after he
His
entered.
first mission.
Yeah, the first mission.
And so that inspired
That's
her.
exactly
and
right.
the story that we get to see, this beautiful story that you all brought to life for us to see, is told through the lens of
Yes.
Miss Lena.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the story, when it first came on, it showed him on a mission. He's going to the war. Starts off with him flying the pilot. He was a pilot fighter.
Yes.
And then he gets killed. At that particular time, I was trying to connect the dots as to, okay, what does this have to do? What does this have to do with the women, the 688 women? But then you guys all brought it together, and it was just such an amazing story that Miss Lena told the story. She brought life. It was more than a World
It was
War
a
II
love
story.
story.
It was a love story, a compassionate story, a story about friendship and how that friendship inspired her to enlist. Am I right?
And
That's
changed
right.
her life.
And changed her life.
That's right. That's
And
right.
made her one of our heroines.
Yes.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
of our heroines.
That,
And
that's probably been the biggest gift for me and Keri is knowing her and knowing her friends and family, but also knowing that she was honored after
Right.
80 years.
Oh, my
that
God.
she was able to leave a legacy, and she literally, this is like just a small part that she thinks like, I just was serving my country,
But she didn't. But I'm assuming at that point when you all went to her that she got it within herself that what she did was what's the word for it? It was just amazing. It was something that encouraged women.
That's right.
It was something that, the whole story, what I got out of it and resonated in my spirit is that in spite of all the adversities that they were going through trying to perform and do their jobs, they still did not give up. They were determined to go forward, to fight.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. I don't even think it even occurred to them to
Right.
not complete their mission.
To not to complete their mission. But, in light of what we saw on the movie, they had some, even when they shipped them over there, the circumstances, the warehouse that they were put in, they weren't even allowed what was it?
Their school, where they were supposed to be their barracks, that were bombed right before they got there.
Right. And the Red Cross wouldn't allow them to stay in the real, I'm going to say the real barracks, the good barracks. So they put them into an unsanitary warehouse.
It was a school. It was an
school?
abandoned school that was overrun with rats, and it was cold, and I'm sure,
There was no heat,
yeah,
no hot water.
I'm sure it was
nothing.
all mold too. It was probably because it was grim, but they fixed it themselves after coming off the ship and being on the ship, and everyone being violently ill throughout because it was a turbulent crossing, and then they had to march for, was it 7 miles? I think.
Yes.
They had
Right.
to march when they got off the ship to go to this abandoned school and then start from scratch to rebuild the school for them to live in.
Clean it up. Yeah.
And clean it out and make it into a while the war is going on.
Right.
Right.
That's
Everything
right.
has to be blacked out.
The windows had to be blacked out
Yes.
so that the German soldiers could not see them while they were working.
No light. So
No
everywhere
light.
around England, everybody had to have their curtains drawn or had to put blackout on their windows. So when they would, at night, when the Germans would bomb, so it was not easy targets. They could not see any light, and they knew that was a town or something like that.
Right. So you take these 855 women from, I'm going to say, small country towns, and then you put them in an environment
Right.
in Europe,
That's right.
in another country,
New food, new.
in such unsanitary circumstances, but they still arose to the occasion
Sure did.
And never complained.
and never complained.
Yeah.
They were amazing.
So they represented the strength, the courage, the humanity that lies within us to do what we need to do to accomplish the mission here.
They also were. Miss Lena told us that, well, she did complain about the food a little bit. She didn't like the food there, but she did say that was exciting for them as they were seeing the world, because they were working and they would get maybe a couple days off so they could go and they could explore. So they were all learning about the culture, and they were learning, like, being in a new country.
Good.
And they met local people. And some of them, I think you know the story better than I do, about how they stayed with families.
Oh, wow. So when they go off on their weekend pass.
The locals would invite them in to have for dinner. And so that's how they fish and chips, and they learned about different types of tea. Many of them did say they were treated better in Europe than they were at home.
Right. Because we're talking about the 40s. They're coming back to segregation, racism, and all the the nasty part of our American history here.
But they did have a good time. They went into town to London, and they would go to the local pubs, and they would go dancing, and got to interact with others. Yeah.
Wow. But I just have to ask this: did they lose any of the young ladies?
Yes.
Yes, they did. I believe 3 women were killed, and what's really interesting, the 3 of them are buried in Normandy, and there are only 4 women buried in Normandy, and 3 of them are from the 688.
Wow. Now that's interesting. Wow.
The army wouldn't pay for their funeral, so they all raised the money themselves to do it.
Right. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy. That's wow. But tell me about the cast of the making of the movie.
Wow, the cast.
Oh my, yeah.
It was well, we were lucky enough that we saw that it was Veterans Day, that Kerry Washington had done a post on Instagram as Mrs. Lena King.
Really?
Yes.
What
I'm sorry.
coincidence.
No, as Charity Adams. She did it as Charity Adams.
No, it was Lena King.
It was Lena King.
It was Mrs. Lena King. Kerry would do these on her post. She would dress up as famous people, but of history, and so women. And so she, unbeknownst to us,
So she would just do this.
Yes.
Not in casting for a movie,
No,
but this was
Veterans
just something
Day.
she would do
Yeah,
in honor of
Veterans Day.
a holiday.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was either Black History Month, on Veterans Day. She always does this, and it's incredible. So when we had seen that she did this, we right away said, and Tyler Perry already knew her and had a great relationship with her, but it just made total sense that she should do this role.
Wow.
but she ended up playing Charity Adams.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
She
Right.
played Charity Adams, and she did an outstanding job.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
It was great. And
It really was.
yeah.
Well, we had at first we did a table read, so we all went in the very beginning, and that was an incredible moment. We all knew we had something, but it was one thing to actually at the table read to see all the actors do their parts, and people needed tissues at the end because people were crying. And I think Kerry, Tyler, we all just kind of looked at ourselves and went, "Oh my gosh, this is we have something. This is."
I cried too.
Yeah, yeah. But you know how it is when you're in this bubble,
Right.
and you're like, "I know this is really emotional," but unbeknownst to all of them, this was the first time they were reading the script. To have the same emotions that we had, that was pretty. Was pretty cool.
Right.
to see that, yeah.
I cried. I got mad.
Yes.
I got angry. I cried, and then I was good, and I felt good. It was just one of those heartfelt movies.
That was her intention.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it is based upon a real story that we as Americans have not heard about.
I think a lot of people, especially what we had found out at the end, they didn't realize this was a true story.
It's true.
And once they realize, they're just, oh my gosh, how is this even possible? How did we not even hear about this story?
Right.
So I think that was really kind of a surprise for everyone as well that this actually really did happen in our history.
Right. And probably people like in 2022 when they received the Congressional Medal of Honor probably did what I did. Oh, okay. And just went on about our business. Okay, that's nice. Wow, look at these World War II vets received this Congressional honor, but not putting the dots together and not knowing how important it was for those women to have served during World War II back in 1944.
And it didn't just happen.
Right.
Elizabeth Helm Fraser, who was our Army veteran who helped us so much through this whole entire journey, she and a whole coalition of incredible, I would say ex-military, fought for them to get this. They worked so hard. They wrote letters and they worked tirelessly to get to make that happen. It didn't just happen automatically. There was a group of people who were so helpful to us in this journey, and she really fought for them to get this.
Wow,
Should have
that's
happened
great.
earlier, in my opinion, because then we would have had a lot more of them left.
Right,
So few.
right. When did you all start the shooting of the film?
We started in
We started right after New Year's, January of 2022.
two. Yeah,
22.
Yes, right after. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
were at Tyler Perry Studios,
That would be in Atlanta?
Atlanta. Yes.
Okay.
And then we
Wow.
went to England. And we shot on location in England, which was
Wow.
terrific.
Yeah.
'Cause
That
we were
was
a lot of the places
amazing.
that
Yes.
this really happened.
That was
Yes.
amazing.
And then also with the UK crew, and a lot of the extras who were involved had, of course, heard the stories from their grandparents, but actually being there on set, they were like, and some even were very teary-eyed, like, I now know what my grandparents went through. I had
Right.
no idea until this moment.
Wow. Which set was the most impressive?
Oh boy, we had some impressive sets. I would say the sets. Every pen, every single piece of paper, every clip. I mean, it was from the time period. They were extraordinary. And then when we got to England, they had England as if it was that day in England, identical. Every day we walked
Yeah.
on set, we just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
the eye to detail was pretty remarkable. And I think because this is a true story and it's World War II, everyone knew they had to get it right. And so, but I think for me, it was, I remember the first time we went and we saw the mail room and just all the props of mail and just in this beautiful location. That was pretty remarkable to see that. And then also the Battle of the Britain, where it's the marching scene, and that was recreated. That is a town that they shut down, recreated, and made it look like the Battle of Britain.
Could have just been bombed.
Wow.
But back to the letters, though, it's amazing, is that all the letters were written. We had found all these World War II letters that were written that they found later on.
Did you the actual
The actual letters,
were-
yeah.
Wow.
And Tyler had them all handwritten and these props were real letters. There
Really?
was 16 million
Wow.
pieces of mail.
Wow.
And he wanted everything to be real and
Authentic.
authentic. All those letters were real letters.
So where did you get the letters from?
Well, we were lucky enough to find, when we were doing our research, we found this New York Times article of all the most famous letters during World War II, and somebody had published them.
Wow.
And that's in our reel, the one they're reading out loud, they're real letters.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
amazed.
Yeah,
So you had
yeah.
real letters.
Yes, and they're also in the Smithsonian as well. Our writer, Kevin, also did a lot of research about that as well. And so there are a lot of documentation of actual soldiers and families trying to correspond, with their loved ones.
You guys really put a lot of work into
This-
bringing
yeah.
this movie,
Yeah.
was
our
materializing
passion
this
project.
movie.
It was a lot of work, but it was worth it.
It didn't feel like work.
Because we got to meet, the people that this is our family now. We
Right.
were between Mrs. King and there's still a 104-year-old incredible Fanny McClendon who's still alive. 104, doesn't even wear a hearing aid. She doesn't even use a walker. She's living on her own. She's extraordinary. And we go visit her all the time, and we had showed her the movie, and we showed Mrs. King the scenes from the movie. It was great.
So you have two 6 AAA battalion members that are still living as of today's date.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
And that would have been Miss, you said Miss,
Annie Mae Robertson and Miss Fanny McClendon.
right,
Yeah.
right. Wow. And now they are like family members. I guess they would be, all the work that you all put in. And
Well, I think they also it took it took a while for them to trust us and their families, and also the Veterans Association, which we really respected. And
right.
I'm so honored that they're able to do that. They really take care of their own, and that's really something.
they really do.
They really do. So after we got over that hurdle, yes, and they're just so touched that there's somebody out there that wants to hear their story and what they did.
We talk to their families every single day. We get text messages. We go back and forth.
Yes,
Every day.
Mrs. King's niece, Bobby Jean, every morning sends a text with a beautiful quote. I mean, every day.
Every day.
Every
And
day.
we
Every
talk
day.
every day, and she just calls, just to
Check in.
We just talk about nothing and everything,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
changed our lives really in a meaningful, emotional way as well. I mean, as Carlota said, we feel lucky.
Yeah. This story
Yeah.
is bigger than all of us.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm sure people that have already gone to see the movie, and I encourage many more people to go and see it, because it is a blessing and it will bless you. And this time we need some encouragement.
You can
We
see it
need
on
all the
Netflix.
encouragement, right?
Yep.
You can go. It's still streaming on Netflix.
Yes.
Right.
And it is a wonderful, wonderful story.
Thank you.
Can we go off there for just a second?
Yeah.
Didn't you all receive an NAACP award
Yeah.
We did.
5.
It just happened.
2 weeks ago?
Yes.
I saw it.
And then we had an Oscar nomination,
That's right.
Best song.
Best Song by Diane Warren.
But he won it, didn't he? Or was it just a nomination?
We didn't get the Oscar, but we got the 5 Image
NAACP
Awards. Yeah.
for Best Picture, Best.
won?
Yes, all of it was a total sweep.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember because I saw Keri gets up and then she forgets.
Yeah.
But she forgot Tyler.
Right,
she
but
didn't.
she didn't. She just was so like I think
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, she was utterly in shock that she won.
Yeah, she
I
won
guess
Best Actress.
She did not think she was going to win.
We had Best Ensemble Cast.
and best movie.
Okay, I'm going to ask that. I'm just say congratulations. Okay. Ready? Well, congratulations on your NAACP Image Awards and your Oscar nominations. But you all had a clean sweep with the NAACP. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's of course it's just an honor always to be nominated, of course, but I think everyone was really surprised. It was a clean sweep. I mean, it won Best Picture, Best Actress for Kerry Washington, Best Ensemble Cast,
Ebony.
and Best Supporting Actress for Ebony, who plays Lena King.
Miss Lena
Mrs.
King.
Lena King, yeah.
Right.
So, and for many of these actors, this is their first big movie. So they were just to go on stage, and they were just so excited, and so we were just so happy for everyone who was involved.
Right. I know Ebony. I see her on Sisters, so she's going to be great.
The kindest
She's going to be
human
great.
being.
We love her.
And that was also the entire cast, crew. It was just a wonderful experience. Everyone was so giving, and everybody wanted to get it right.
They wanted to learn.
How did you go about, for instance, picking Ebony as Miss Lena?
That was Tyler. Tyler, because
Worked
he
with
had
her.
worked with her
Yeah.
and sent her the script. And she read it, and I still up to that point when she said yes, I don't think she knew that it was actually a true story. And what's really beautiful is she has become very close with Mrs. King's family as well. She surprised her on her 100th birthday.
Wow.
And she also sang at her memorial service. And she has a beautiful voice. So she is family. And many of the cast members are, they go travel together.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really become,
A family.
a true family.
Yeah, it
with
really
lots
has.
of love.
Yeah. And then we were lucky enough. We got, Sam Waterston, Oprah Winfrey, Dean Norris. It was
Susan
Sarandon. We had a lot of people wanted to be a part of this movie.
Wow. Yes, that cast was amazing. And how did you go? Did you actually have 855 women on set?
I'm glad you asked. Yes, it was.
Really?
It was. I think the
And then some.
largest, the largest
Yeah.
extra cast I've ever seen in my entire life, both in the U.S. and in England. Because Tyler really wanted to see.
He brought it to life.
He wanted you to know that they were there,
Right.
and not just matte or special effects. And there's some great moments on set where he's on the bullhorn trying to get everyone together and in line, and they're not military.
And they were tired. It was a long day, but you had to get it right. You
have to march.
March. And then we had Debbie Allen, giving out the orders and telling them to march.
Right,
March,
left.
right, left,
right,
right, left.
left.
But also, I wanted to also mention, if I could, you were talking about the cast, so every uniform that you see, every item of clothing had to be made. There were no going to a costume department or
No
going
rentals.
What?
Yeah, it did not exist. So if you think about it, whenever you see things in the Army, it is of women for movies, it's nurses or aides. It's not the actual women who are in a battalion. So this was a first. So everything had to be handmade. And we had an amazing costume designer, Karen Wagner, who also was known for The Notebook and many other amazing films.
It was the biggest wardrobe department you've ever seen.
Wow,
It was
that's
incredible.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, and the moment these women, even the extras, the moment they put on that uniform, it was like everybody's
Right.
So everybody just fell in line and in order.
Yes. They all
Wow.
felt it. Yeah.
The making of that movie is
Oh,
just fascinating, and the movie itself is just breathtaking and heart-throbbing, and it's just amazing.
I still cry every time I see it, and
Me
I've seen it
too.
10,000 times. I
Right.
can't help it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough for like you said, the Oscar nomination. Diane Warren wrote the most beautiful song that her performed, H period, E period, R period. She's the
Right.
singer, and it's called The Journey, and it's truly
It's
such a beautiful song, and it resonates with these women to today. It's just become like an anthem. It's such a beautiful song.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a
And
great.
she got an award too, right? Did Diane?
Diane got nominated
She
for an
got
Oscar.
yeah.
She got nominated
Yes.
for an Oscar.
But it's a great story how it all happened. This was the first time that she had ever written a song that before the movie there was no movie yet. So Kerry is very good friends with her and showed her our sizzle reel, and from that, unbeknownst to
Really?
us, she wrote a song, and
and it just fell right.
and then
Yeah.
she sent it to Tyler, and then.
Wow.
Yeah, and then if you haven't seen the movie, it's like there is no other song.
Right.
There
There's
is
no
this
other
is
song.
That
the
is the
song.
anthem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she had written it and recorded it before we even went into production. It's the first time in her life, and this is her 16th nomination, Diane Warren.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything just kind of just came together
It was meant
by
to be.
divine intervention. That's right.
Oh, there was a lot of divine
That's
intervention
why
on set
that's
too.
why that movie is so compelling, and it's just great.
Thank you.
Thank
I can't
you.
describe it any other way.
We just love them so much. We loved every single one of those women, and if
And we
knew
love
them or
you
not-
all because you brought it to life.
Thank
Like I
you.
said earlier, you introduced a whole new generation to this beautiful story.
We hope we change the history books forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because one thing about it, you can't change history. You can't hide our voices. Our voices are there to be told. And we shall continue to tell our stories. And this 6 AAA movie is incredible. And it is just only the beginning of the stories that we as African Americans need to be told every day. And thank you all.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you all for bringing it to life.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.